good morning, and welcome to the Power of Prayer, 1410 a.m. Keri, the international Christian station. We like to say international Christian station. You're listening to the Power of Prayer, a.k.a. the Pop, and the Pop won't stop. This is the radio ministry of Jeremiah and Dr. Danielle, and I am excited to be in the studio today. I feel like a guest on a show today, and so we have a great show for you today. We have great guests who are near. These folks are really close to our Keri audience. I mean, they are as close as you can get, and so you don't want to miss today's interview. Dr. Danielle, my love, my life, yes, my wife, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Doing well.
Good.
I'm sorry about this morning. I just felt like I was overwhelmed because I didn't know we were going to be doing all of that stuff, and so I just didn't. So sorry.
It's okay.
I should have just gone with the flow. Do you know Dr. Phil, what's his name over at International Christian Ministry? Phil Walker.
Oh, Phil Walker, yeah.
He told me some marriage advice. He says, you know what? Every morning, get up and apologize. I said, why? He says, because you're going to do something wrong. So, you're right, Dr. Phil Walker. I'm sorry, Danielle. Anyway, so today's guests are none other than taking care of business, Clay and Marty. Welcome to the Power of Prayer.
Well, thanks for having us.
Oh, my gosh. This is Clay Koerner and Marty Pay. And you are wonderful, wonderful radio hosts. Let me tell you, your show is really quite awesome. We look forward to it. Tell us about the stations that you're on. Keyword stations.
Stations. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I want to make a comment about. Thank you for having us here.
Awesome.
But I want to make a comment about your apology to your wife this morning.
Yeah, I had one of those I wanted to talk about too.
Oh,
yeah,
please,
yeah.
please.
There's a very good rule of thumb. When Mama's not happy, nobody's happy, and when Daddy's not happy, nobody cares. It's just the way things are.
I'm learning that slowly.
Well, I learned that one quick.
Well, my wife apologizes to me every day.
Oh, it's the other way around, huh?
He's hoping his wife isn't listening this morning.
I hope she's still there.
Oh, wow.
Well, and I have to tell you, this is kind of fun for us because this is a studio we normally use, and it's interesting sitting on this side of the mic as opposed to the side that you two are sitting on. So,
well, actually, we wish
welcome to the hot seat.
Yes, we wish the roles could be reversed. We feel, bowing down at the Clay and Marty altar. Well, you guys,
oh wow,
you guys are really good. You guys are not only on 1410 a.m. KERI, you're on AM 1180 Kern, you're on KGEO, you're on
KKIM.
Yes. Where else are you? Oh, you're also on Nook.
KNookMedia.com.
KNookMedia.com. And so, wow, that's pretty awesome. How long have you guys been at it?
About a week.
And depending upon how the station reacts to this interview,
Could be the only week.
could be a short week.
We've been, 4.5, almost 5 years now.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
crazy.
It's
yeah.
amazing when you look at the guests that Marty's been able to recruit, and Marty does all the recruiting of the guest.
Oh,
I'm just the pretty face of the show.
and if he's the pretty face, you know we're in trouble.
You guys have the face for radio.
Don't we know?
But this is great to have you on. You know, Danielle and I have been at the Power of Prayer for almost 2 years.
Wow.
We never ever thought that this opportunity would present itself as such. We are, the Power of Prayer seeks to share God's love through prayer. We believe prayer is a gift. And we sometimes feel like we're limited by geography or limited by whatever the case may be. But we feel like our prayers have no limits. Mm-hmm. We believe that we are praying to an almighty God, and he has the power to intervene. And I pray that you two are men of faith. Tell us a little bit about your faith.
Go ahead, Marty.
They point at each other.
Ooh, well, I have to agree with you. First of all, you know, we serve a God of prayer. We serve a God that is just so awesome. There's nothing he can't do. So, and that just makes it's kind of nice to have that as a backstop. We know that regardless of what happens in life, God's there for us, and there is a plan that He ultimately has. I remember C.S. Lewis. I love the way he put it. He said it's a little bit like looking at a book. God can look at the book of our life at different parts of it, and we may not have experienced it yet, but He's able to open it up to that part and look at it and see what the future will be for us. So I've been very fortunate in my life. God's been very good to me, and I've been a Christian for most of my life, and like a lot of Christians, I was a non-practicing Christian, Christian in name only. But the great thing about our faith is that we're constantly making mistakes because we are human, which is why we need Jesus Christ in the first place. And I'm like any other man. I mean, I make more than my share of mistakes, and I'm just thankful that I have a God that forgives me for those mistakes.
And
What church you go to?
Clay forgives him too.
That's numero uno, right?
I love this about your show. I love this back and forth on your show. That makes it so exciting. I'm just like, sometimes I'm not expecting the laughter, and I'm like, oh, that socked me in the gut right there, because I did. Were you friends before the show? How did you
Enemies.
guys meet?
Are you assuming that we're not friends now?
Well, sometimes I don't know.
We're both in the insurance business. Marty is a casualty insurance agent. He does auto, homeowners, and commercial insurance, workman's comp, where I do employee benefits, health insurance, life insurance, retirement plans, and things like that. So we did some joint work, and we got to know each other and realized that, I was interested. Well, let me tell you how we got started, in case you're curious.
Please.
How the show actually started. I was interested in doing some advertising on the radio show because they contacted me, and I said, rather than advertising, I'd rather have a show. And they said, really? Yeah, I said, the price is probably the same, not knowing what the price was. And then they said, okay, well, come on in and do an interview. And Marty has experience in radio. He was in radio many, many years ago. Many years ago.
Oh.
Ouch.
And so I figured if I could get an old dog to help me out, we could have a great show. And I was thinking about Obamacare, because that's what it all started with. The law was being passed, and that was my expertise.
Well,
let me finish, and I'll get back to that.
Oh, yes, please.
So we came in, and no questions.
No questions here.
We came in, and we
Don't confuse the issue with facts.
I won't be able to continue if you don't let me continue. I'll forget.
He'll be asleep in about 5 minutes.
So we came in and did an interview, and they sort of liked us. And so we started out as a show that took telephone calls. But what we found out was that people would call in and monopolize the show. And we never got the opportunity to really ask what we wanted to ask. And we said, we're doing the show. We want to ask our dumb questions. So we decided to eliminate the call-ins, and then it just expanded and grew from there.
Wow.
Amazing. Congratulations on the success of the show. The expansion has been really terrific. You're responsible, Marty, for booking the guest, I understand, and some great guests you've had.
Oh yeah.
Tell us about some of the most exciting interviews you've done.
Let me ask you a question. First of all, you're happy with our guests?
Oh, I don't know. Sometimes. I guess in general, I'm happy with your guests.
Okay.
Not always happy with the answers. I was listening just recently to your interview with Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, and I love him, but I can't say that on every issue that I sort of embrace everything he's doing. I honestly. How can I answer that question honestly?
Well, the only reason I asked you that question is because if you're not happy, he's responsible. So if you are happy with the guest, then I'm responsible.
I was too
for it.
technical in my response. Dun-dun-dun. I messed that up.
You can't agree with everybody.
Oh, no.
And on everything.
No.
But Marty is far right, see, and I'm left.
I don't believe that.
No, not for a moment. No.
Yeah.
Not for a moment.
All I have to do is ask you about Obamacare, and then we'll figure out where you're at.
That'll be the rest of your program.
But I honestly want to know, maybe locally, you interview authors, for example. What's an author locally that you find was just a great guest, maybe nationally as well?
Ooh, good question. Well,
I liked Eric Metaxas. He was one of our first guests.
Yeah, Eric Metaxas was great.
He wrote Bonhoeffer and several other books.
Yeah, Bonhoeffer. He also wrote, what's the name of on the gentleman who was responsible for eliminating slavery in England, Wilberforce.
Right, Wilberforce.
Yeah. So he wrote a book on Wilberforce, which was turned into a movie. He was a great guest. We've been kind of lucky. What I do is, and part of it is just my background in insurance, plus I did this in Los Angeles. I was a talk show host in Los Angeles.
Many years ago.
Many years ago, yeah. So I've just developed a way of developing how to find guests. So, and I do a lot of books on tape. So if I grab a book on tape that's really interesting, like right now I'm listening to Mrs. Kennedy and Me, which was written by Clint Hill. He was the Secret Service agent who, if you remember, there's a Grutter film when the Kennedys were shot. He jumped on the back of the limousine.
Oh.
And now we've had him on before. So I've already contacted him. We're going to have him back on again, talking about Mrs. Kennedy and his relationship with her over the years. So, if I find an interesting book, something that's fascinating, something that would interest Clay and I, then, we look at it and go, well, this would be something that our listeners would enjoy. We do a lot of military people because, obviously in Kern County, we're big on the military, and we want to support our troops as much as possible.
As a matter of fact, Danielle and I bumped into you at an Honor Flight Gala.
Yes.
Just recently, you were both there. Tell us about your involvement with Honor Flight.
Well, I was just there because I just support them. I try to go out to the airport when they take off or when they land, and I also try to attend the functions just as a supporter. But Marty has actually a working role.
Well, I did that night, and it was a little bit of a stretch for me because I was doing the auctioning, which was, I've never actually done that once before, but it was fun. It was fun. But again, anything involving veterans, we're also involved with the Wounded Heroes Fund here in town, somewhat, because that's a great organization. But I think there's I don't know if you've listened to the last couple shows. We had Kevin McCarthy, as you mentioned. We had Ambassador John Bolton on.
Yes,
We had
yes.
Waleed Ferris. And one question I had for all of them is, where's the anger? Because, here it is. We had so many men that we've lost, men and women that we lost in Iraq. A lot of people like Wesley Barrentos, who's one of our guests, who lost his legs. And yet in a 2-week period, everything we did is undone. And now the terrorists have it back. So, where's the anger with the American people? I mean, a lot of expenses, a lot of human loss, and yet, there's no anger. So, those are the kind of questions that sometimes we ask, penetrating questions that, really should make a difference and make people think.
Local politician. You've interviewed so many of them. Who comes to mind as someone that was just a really great interview?
It might be different for both of us, but I've always enjoyed Shannon Grove. She's so exciting and interesting. And just to hear her talk about how she's stepped down up in Sacramento.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, and it's interesting. I enjoy Shannon. They've gotten to be friends of ours. But Jean Fuller, I really enjoy Jean. She's
Jean studies, and she really has answers.
Yeah, and I think Jean is more my type of interview. I mean, she's a teacher. I'm a teacher on the side. So, so we have a lot of fun with Jean in studio.
Where are you teaching?
I teach one night a week over at University of Phoenix. I teach media and its effects on society, public speaking, and critical thinking.
All right.
Cool.
At a national level, I'm sure politician, Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, I'm guessing, who at that national international level, who might that be?
Who would be our favorite guest? Ooh, very good question.
Our favorite guest?
International or national politician?
I don't know. We've had so many people. I can't remember most of them.
Newt Gingrich, I really liked. We had Newt Gingrich on.
Oh, my gosh.
And I really, really liked Rick Santorum a lot. We had Santorum on about a month ago.
I wasn't that impressed with Santorum.
Really?
Not really.
No, I like Santorum a lot. I did. We've got a couple national guests lined up for the next couple weeks. We've got the gentleman who's running for Senate in Louisiana, Bob Manis, who's a retired colonel or general. I think he's a retired colonel. We're having him on, and that's going to be an excellent guest. Strong Christian, makes no bones about his faith, running against a very liberal Democrat in Louisiana. So I was very impressed with his information, so we've managed to get him on. So he's going to be a great interview. So we've been very, very fortunate. I think we're going to have Bob Smith, who's a congressman or a senator in New Hampshire. And we have a gentleman coming on, I've got to line up the date, whose name everybody knows, George Allen. His dad was the Rams coach and he was the senator in New Jersey, was also governor, I think, at one time. So we're going to have
we don't
him
stay
on.
with one theme. We'll go from one area of life to another area of life. So the show is really interesting if people will take the time to listen in. I mean, we have athletes, we have entertainers, we have authors, we have politicians. I mean, you name it. A lot of nonprofits here in Kern County, we try to help them and get involved in the community. We even tried to get the governor of New Mexico to come on because we are in New Mexico, but we haven't been successful at that yet.
Had a hard time with him. Now, with her trying to get her on. Today we have, actually this weekend, we have a great lineup. We're going to interview Sheriff Babeau, who's the sheriff of Pinal County, Arizona. He's been on Fox and CSN a lot, or CNN a lot lately. Yeah, so that'll be a... Rockwell, yeah, we have Rockwell from Trouts.
We had Rockwell from Trouts on. He's a lot of fun. Rockwell's always fun. You know, there's a guy that really has turned Trouts around.
Yes,
and he really gives back to the community. He's out there doing something for everybody all the time.
Well, hey, you had one of our sponsors of this show on, In God We Trust America founder and president, Jackie Sullivan.
Right,
she's a sweetheart.
That was a recent interview. She's great. We love the work that she's doing promoting patriotism across the country. Danielle and I get an opportunity to volunteer with the organization. And what's something that you learned from Jackie?
I guess perseverance would be what I would say.
I was just going to say that. Yep. Because Jackie just doesn't give up. You know, and I can't help but mention our second guest this weekend. We're going to have Miles Musio on.
Oh yes, about global warming.
We're going to talk about. Oh boy, you do listen to the show.
Yeah, that is.
Does that really exist?
Exactly, because I think it's. I mean, we say this term. Is it just a myth that we're believing? I'd like to know more. I'd love to hear what Miles has to say about it.
Well, I actually heard him give a speech about it, and at the end of it, I said, "Hey, I've got to have you on the show to talk about it." He said, "Sure, no problem at all." So he's going to come in studio, and we'll talk about global warming. That'll be a fun show.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So we're going to put a soapbox in the studio today. We've got to ask Clay. We've got Clay Koerner in the house today, and we would be remiss if we didn't say, so tell us, what do you really think about Obamacare?
I love Obamacare. and, you know, and there's some truth to that because everybody's required to have health insurance or they're going to pay a penalty. This year it's $95 or 1% of your income. The only way they're going to be able to collect it is through the IRS, and that's if you have a refund. So if you have no refund, which most people don't, they won't be able to collect the penalty. So that's really interesting. It's sort of a fallacy they have one. But it has increased my business because I know what I'm doing. Now, a lot of agents, about 50% of the agent community is getting out of the business. And we're seeing carriers changing the way they do business. Obama has destroyed some of the plans that were currently in place, and he's put in these required what they call metal plans: bronze, gold, silver, and platinum. Each plan the first plan, the bronze, has a $6,300 deductible. That's the least expensive plan. People can't afford that, and they're forcing people to buy this type of insurance because they say it includes what they call essential benefits. Don't ask me what those are. But all the plans had essential benefits before. And so they've added all these rules, regulations, and requirements that are making it hard for employers to actually deliver benefits to their...
That's the White House calling Clay as we speak.
Well, actually, Clay has a little timer that comes on once in a while during the show to make sure he stays awake, and I think that's the time.
But no, there are some good things about Obamacare. The fact that you can cover a dependent to age 26, that's, I guess, a good thing. My question is, when does a child become an adult?
Yeah.
I mean, 26. Well, that's not true either, because then when they come off of their parents' plan at 26, they can then go on COBRA for another 3 years. So now you're 29, almost 30 years old. I mean, when do you take responsibility for yourself? So that's one of the fallacies. One of the good things, though, is everything's guaranteed issue, pre-existing conditions covered. So people can actually sign up. They think they can sign up when they get sick. Well, that's not true. They have what they call a window of opportunity to sign up. And that's where people fail to understand. They have to sign up during that window, or they're not going to be able to sign up unless they have what they call a special situation, like you relocated to a different area, you got married, you got divorced. Several different rules and regulations. What happened just recently, you may have heard, that individuals were getting subsidies. Well, 85% of the people in California who signed up under Covered California received a subsidy of some type or other. So that means you and I, the taxpayers, are going to be funding these people. Well, the government's going to fund it for 2 years, but after that, it's the state's requirement. Where is this money going to come from? How are we going to continue to pay for people's insurance? I don't know. I really don't know. But just yesterday, there was a couple of courts in Washington and in Virginia that talked about the subsidies. And in the bill itself, it said that subsidies were only available to state exchanges, not federal exchanges. Well, 34 of the states have federal exchanges. So about 5 million people are getting subsidies that the court said they do not qualify for. So this is going to be a major disaster to Obamacare if the Supreme Court doesn't go along with it, as this is appealed to the Supreme Court. All in all, I think it's a failure. I think just about everything Obama does is a failure. I think the man's a disaster to this country. I think he's way over his head, and he doesn't know what he's doing, and I hope he's listening.
Oh, yeah, he listens to the pop all the time.
I mean, you listen to, I have seen more people come out and talking about what a disaster he has been to the country. Yeah.
Well, I was looking at some of your stuff on Facebook here, and you have the tax plan. You have things here about food stamps, welfare spending, the debt increase. So it seems that you've done some research about him, and you're talking from a very statistic point of view.
Well, if you read some of the programs he's following, you see he's trying to put this country into depression. He's trying to put more people on welfare. He's trying to make more people dependent on government. This is a strategy. And part of the strategy of Obamacare is to eventually move to a single-payer health care system where the federal government controls everything, including all your dollars. They even have a program where they're going to be able to take away your 401k money.
Oh, wow.
They're working on that. If you are 76 years old and you come down with cancer under Obamacare, you don't get any treatment. You get a pill for pain.
Wow.
If you are a senior and you have to go to the hospital, but they're going to put you in for observation, you're not covered for observation. You're only covered if you go in for a procedure. However, if you're an illegal alien and you get sick and need to go in, you're covered for everything.
Speaking of, immigration is a hot issue. I'd like to hear you guys weigh in on that. If you'd like to weigh in on that, you just recently interviewed Majority Leader, newly elected, Congressman Kevin McCarthy. I heard your questions about immigration. There are those who think that Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy is not doing enough in regard to this issue. What are your thoughts?
Well, first off, I don't care what issue it is. There's going to be 50% of the people are going to agree and 50% of the people are going to disagree within a few points. So I think Kevin's doing a good job. Now, I have talked to a lot of people that don't like him for one reason or another. And you seem to be pushing on Kevin today, so I don't know what your feelings are.
Well, let me tell you why. Because this Saturday, I was headed to the mall. I see all of these flags on the overpass. And I stop and I say, I love the American flag. Who are you guys? Great. It's a group of patriots here. And they were calling for it was the Tea Party.
Impeachment.
It was a group. It was a coalition of impeachment of Barack Obama, and they were also calling for the issue of immigration to be addressed. And I talked to many folks out there. Oh, it was interesting too. That it was pretty kind of almost scary, because there was someone who drove by, and they threw this cup at us. And it was filled with just soda pop, thank God. It wasn't something else. It just splashes us all, and they were cursing. And, I mean, it's a heated issue. I've talked to friends on both sides of this issue. This issue just needs to be addressed. And I respect and greatly admire Kevin McCarthy, and I have nothing but praise for the work that he's done for our community in Washington. However, this issue is not going away. Folks are getting arrested in front of his office. What are we to do about this? How are we to make progress in this area that is not going away for this community?
I like Kevin's approach. I really do. I didn't at first, and I wanted to pursue him, which I did a little bit on the air about it. But his approach is that before we do anything, we have to talk about sealing the border, okay? Because I think President Reagan made one of the things he did wrong, and I'm a great admirer of President Reagan, is that he came up with this comprehensive plan, but sealing the border wasn't part of it. So the sieve just kept on going on, which it had for the last 20 years. So Kevin says you have to seal the border first, then let's deal with it, okay? And I think that's where the conversation has to begin. And one side of the issue doesn't want to seal the border. Now, the kids, okay, that's a great issue. I mean, obviously, who doesn't like kids? But and Kevin brought up a good. Clay's raising his hand. Clay was a kid once. It's hard to believe, but at one time he was a kid. Well, Kevin brought up a good point. If the kids are from Mexico, they get to be sent back. That's the law. But if the kids are from Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala, they are refugees. They are not sent back. Excuse me. So we're having to deal with these kids. And they're advertising in these countries. There are actually billboards saying, send your kids to the United States. So as sympathetic as we are, we're the most sympathetic country in the world. There isn't a country that gives as much as we give. What are we going to do? Obviously, we're going to take care of these kids, and they know this. So a good majority of the Border Patrol's budget is now tied up with taking care of these kids, and the drug cartels are walking across the border.
Wow.
So, again, there's an ulterior motive here. You have to look at the entire picture. And my big complaint is that the media does not look at the whole picture. They're looking at the issue of the kids and not looking at the issues related around that. And that's a travesty.
And we're not the only country that has this problem. I mean, France is turning away 90% of the people that are trying to get in right now, and they're overwhelmed with the Muslim community in France. So, and Greece has a problem with
immigration.
Immigration. Thank you, Marty. That's why I have Marty. He always fills in for me.
Sometimes Clay puts emphasis on the wrong syllable and the words come out wrong. So.
Well, you are listening to the Power of Prayer, 1410 AM Keri, the international Christian station. It's really deep and it's true today because our special guests are Clay and Marty, and we are taking care of business on the pop today, and we're so excited that they're here. Listen, you want to stay tuned for the next half hour. We want to ask them some more questions, especially in terms of global terrorism. You had an excellent guest on your show recently.
Waleed Ferris.
Yes, in regard to that, we had Denise Gary Pandel on just yesterday talking about some of the more recent developments in Israel. We'd like to know your take on that and other things. If you have questions, please call us 661-842-0007. That's the number to call in live today. Your questions to Clay and Marty, 661-842-0007. We'd like to thank In God We Trust America for sponsoring the Power of Prayer this first half hour, and of course Sneedo's over on White Lane. Excellent dry cleaning at a discount rate. Stay tuned to the Power of Prayer. We'll be right back after this news break.